Thanks. Welcome to Japec Community Life Magazine section, Earth Beauty. We're standing here right now, or should we say sitting, with GCF. He's going to explain to me what that means, and he came in from Africa. So we're going to get on with the importance of giraffes and why we need to start trying to reach out and save the animals, because it is part of us. So would you like to explain a little bit more about what GCF stands for?
So I'm Dr. Julian Fennessy. I'm the director of the Giraffeconservation Foundation, which is the only organization in the world that protects giraffe across the whole continent in Africa. So we purely do giraffe, nothing else. They basically haven't had a voice. They're the tallest animal in the world and probably the most iconic animal in the world. Yet no one has sort of given them attention. We have a silent extinction going on.
Now we're going to get into several things. When you say conservation, explain what that means, because we want people to understand why you named it that and the meaning behind it.
So it's got nothing to do with the Conservative Party at all. It's about conservation of animals. Okay. So what that means is that we're trying to protect giraffe and their habitat for long term. Because if we're going to make these animals survive, it needs to be not just in the next 5 years, not 10 years, we want them to stay forever. So conservation is about protecting all of the animals in an area, the plants that they eat, and the habitat in which they range. So together, we can all make a difference.
And that means conservation. Now, second thing, now that my listeners and readers have had that on, what made you choose giraffe? I mean, there's a lot of animals out here. So you tell me why you chose just giraffe.
So many years ago, I studied a lot of elephant stuff as well. And I realized while I was doing elephant and giraffe research and conservation efforts that there was so little attention to giraffe. So as a result, I looked more and more into it, and I thought they need someone to speak for them. So as 20 years ago when I started this, all up until today, I realized that we need a voice. And unfortunately, we're still the only voice in the world for them. But hopefully with these type of attention and support, and it's great to be on Earth Beauty with you, to be able to say, wow, we can tell the world what's going on, and hopefully we can make that difference.
And that's what we're going to try to do. Now, let me ask you this. A lot of people have different missions. Explain to my viewers exactly what is your mission. And then also your 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Could you explain more of that to me?
No worries. So giraffe conservation is, in the future, is about, as I said, long-term sustainability. So what I want to see is no more giraffe go extinct in any countries in Africa. To date, giraffe have gone extinct in 7 countries in Africa. So if everything goes well, and what me and my team and all of those involved in giraffe conservation are doing, is being able to save them, working with governments, working with private sector, working with NGOs, non-government organisations, to make that difference. So we go out in the ground and we literally either protect animals physically, we pick up some and we move them to different directions called translocations, and we're studying what's happening and where they're moving so that in the next 5-10 years, if we need to make a difference, we can. We have that information.
Now the concept, which most people they think about, but they don't think about, of thinking that giraffes are everywhere. You know what I mean? You have them in zoos, you have them here. Would that be something later on that maybe you would be interested in doing, is having different states, such as, okay, we're in Florida, give up a state park for this to make sure that it's carried on?
So I think...
You understand what I'm asking?
I totally understand.
Would that be something that we could, you could see going forward to try to see?
The best thing, I reckon, is keeping giraffe in Africa.
Okay.
That's the number one. If we can do that, then we can conserve them and everything that's around them. They grew up in Africa, and as a result, they're adapted to the trees and what they eat in Africa. So that's our primary interest. If we can leave them in Africa and we can work with local people and governments to protect their areas, that is primary. If that's an issue, then let's look at alternatives.
No, I'm just saying,
sure.
Because as we can see, and this is not to get, we get to the subject, poaching, so we'll get back to that. But as issues come up, I always want to know, would that be something that maybe later on down the line, such as the park we're in today, to have something where people can be able to go and they just live free?
It's interesting you say that, and as a last resort, I agree that's something we have to look at. Rhino at the moment, black rhino in Africa, some of them are being taken to Australia as we speak to keep that population, just in case something goes wrong. But those numbers there are down to less than 5,000 individuals in the wild. So in Africa at the moment, yeah, giraffe are assumed to be everywhere. It's not true. We've got 100,000 giraffe, which is not much. And if we've got many different types of giraffe, some of them we need to protect.
And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
What about the different types now? Is it 9 or is it 4? Okay.
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
So I think the real issue is we've just recently been doing long-term research and proven that we think there is 4 types of giraffe,
Okay.
4 species of giraffe that are unique and they look different. So
Now explain that. Now I have learned some.
yeah,
That no giraffe carries the same spots. Am I correct?
just like your fingerprint and my fingerprint,
Right.
it's unique.
Okay. So explain the different species and why they are different, if I may get you to do this for me.
No worries.
Okay.
So we have 4 types, what we've been coming up with: the northern, the reticulated, the Maasai, and the southern. Their pattern, what we call a pelage or coat pattern, looks totally different between all of them. One is really bold and liver dark color. Another one looks like a star-like pattern. The next one has a big white pattern in between. So they look different coat pattern. They've got ossicones, these things on their heads. They're not horns or antlers, they're called ossicones. And some of them have 3 of them, some of them have 5 of them. So that's one way to distinguish the different ones.
So you're saying the 2 horns I see, you're saying some of them have 5 of them?
Some of them have 5. At the back here, you can see 2 at the back.
Now you have pictures of these.
We've got pictures of all of
Okay,
these.
because that's what we're going to need to do, get pictures of each species so that people will understand what is really going on there.
And you'll see the pattern differences as well between them. And it's interesting, they're all in different parts of Africa, but they haven't mixed. They haven't interbred. They just maybe don't like each other. Maybe it's ecological. We don't know. But
would it be where the area is that they live in, why they would have different ones? I mean, what do they actually do? Let me ask you this first. What do they actually do with those things up there? Is it for fighting, sparring, or
yeah,
what? Okay.
the boys, they hit each other hard, and sometimes they can kill another giraffe by fighting. It's one of the most amazing things to hear this massive thud as these guys fight.
With their necks.
With their necks. It's brutal.
Okay. So then I guess you would label it as tribes then.
Well, we call them species.
Species.
But it's, you know, some people have called them tribes or races or subspecies. Taxonomy.
Now, which ones is more aggressive? The more horns you got or the less horns you got? And have anybody crossed that territory?
I think just the bigger ones.
The
Doesn't
big-
matter in any of them. The big ones, they want to fight full stop. It's just like going down anywhere in the world, and the big ones sometimes want to take control.
Run the whole thing. Now, let me ask you this. Have you reached out to the U.S. Fishing and Wildlife? Is this somebody who you actually reached out to see?
Well, interesting, we've just recently chatted with the head of the US Fish and Wildlife Service, and what we really want is to get much more awareness. And it's extremely powerful, the US Fish and Wildlife Service, and its ability to lobby and be able to get attention. Maybe get a little bit of support as well. Some dollars help conservation. So I hope that the attention of giraffe can increase, and hopefully organisations like
Now,
yours.
have you wrote any proposals or have you set up any meetings yet?
Not directly to them, but we just set up this meeting to sort of feel the water.
Talk about it.
Yeah, and it's a first step. We're a small organisation, and you know, we don't have the reach of many of these big guys out there, but as they say in Africa, pole pole, slowly, slowly.
What we're going to try to do too is get Just from the Heart to help assist in trying to get you guys out there more.
No, we really appreciate it.
And that's what we need to do. Now, let's talk about poaching, which to me bothers me because I don't like to see animals getting hurt. And then also to be used in a way just for your tail, like the rhinos are used for their horns, and then left. With the trade, let's just start from the beginning. Poaching, how do you feel about this? Is this a necessary need?
No, illegal hunting or poaching is deplorable. It's absolutely disgusting. There is no reason why people should be doing it if it is for things just like a tail. It's just to prove a sign of wealth that I can have a fly swat. There is no other reason. Sometimes they come into the DRC, kill an amazingly beautiful animal, chop off its tail and go away. It's totally wrong, and we
Now
need
they
to
can't
stop.
grow that item back, am I
No.
correct?
No.
So you just go chop off a tail, leave the rest of the animal, or kill the animal.
You have to kill the animal to get to the tail.
So you have to kill
Yeah.
it. Wow.
Sadly.
So let me ask you this. You've been over there for a while with this poaching.
Yep.
if it's done on, you said community property, government property, and then what was the other one? Private property.
Land, no.
All three of them being violated by poachers, am I correct?
Yes.
So isn't that sort of breaking the law? And is there a police system over there or army over there that can prevent this, instead of, from what I'm seeing, they send one person or two people with you, and that's supposed to be dealing with a bunch of people in the woods, in the jungle, or out in Africa shooting at you? Why haven't the government stepped up to this?
Sometimes it's a really complicated, potentially corrupt system.
Don't worry about it. It's a cell phone.
Obviously extremely popular.
Yeah, you will. Trying to get the job done, saving the world. That's what Just From the Heart does. We're trying to help out. So tell me something.
Yeah.
You've dealt with the governments over there. What could the U.S. or what could having a meeting with the UN help you benefit? I mean, what is your next steps of trying to stop this? And I find it hard, I guess me. We own government property. If you own government property, that is illegal to be doing some killing on there.
Totally illegal.
So why hasn't the army or the military came over there and said, look guys, this is going to cease. I'm going to lock you up, or I'm going to imprison you. Is there laws over there? First of all, is there laws over there for that?
Some countries, well, in all countries there is law. You're not allowed to do it. But it's easier said than done. Some of these groups, Coney and the Lord's Resistance Army, have been well armed for the last 20 years. They're poaching elephants, rhinos, giraffes.
So it's an army going up against the army if you were to make that argument.
Yeah. It's a war out there.
So you actually have, now I've never heard of that, but you're actually telling me right now that someone has a huge army and they're making money off of poaching. I know that's the number one thing. And yet the other army won't totally engage in it.
They're probably not as well equipped.
So you're saying
The poachers are
the
better
poachers
equipped.
have more equipment
Whether
than the government.
They've sometimes got their RPGs out there. They've all got AK-47s. Wildlife trade is the third biggest illegal business in the world.
Next to human trafficking, right?
Yeah, human trafficking up there, and then you come down and animals is third. It's really frightening. Literally in these places, I've seen bodies left, right and centre. Giraffe conservation is not for sissies, that's the bottom line.
So let me ask you this. Let's get on that subject and hone it down, because that's where most of the threat is coming from, correct? How big would you say some of these armies are? 300, thousands of people? What are we looking at? Hundreds of thousands.
Some of them can be tens of thousands, especially across Central Africa. It's a bush war. It's a really dirty war out there. So in countries like Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Chad, South Sudan, some of these places you don't really want to go on a holiday, but they're the last places for some giraffe and other wildlife out there.
So let me ask you this then, and we're going to get back to that. What happens when they dwindle down to nothing?
It's the last of them. We've lost biodiversity.
Do you then turn around if it's 50,000 left and they done killed them in the next 10 years? What happens then once they're gone? That fight needs to be discussed now, because once they're gone, now what the trade is going to be.
Well, I think the biggest thing around that is, why do we want to fight it? Is there a resource around it? Maybe governments around the world internationally are not prepared to help because maybe there's no diamonds for them, there's no oil. What's the issue behind why governments want to make a difference?
Well, there you have it. But if you kill off all the animals, what you be dealing with is the environment. Like bees are important. If you get rid of the bees, you got another issue.
We have massive problems with bees.
So if that happens, then like some people say, kill all the bees. If you kill all the bees, we're gonna have some real serious issues going on.
Totally.
Health-wise and environment-wise. The other thing, the animals bring a certain thing to it. Just like some people hate vultures, but vultures clean up.
Critical.
Without them, boom. Without flies,
Yeah.
certain things are there. So let me ask you this question: since we are having the problem with the poachers, if someone do you pay the guards who go on with you? Does that come out of funding, or would you guys, if you had enough funding, be able to get a force behind you? I mean, not as big as some of those forces is, because you're going to need an army, a real army, to go in there and step in and take them down.
And that's what's being done. You know, money is being raised by many organisations to build these armies for conservation, because it's the only way to get boots on the ground to make a difference. And if we lose elephants, giraffe, these are pollinators of these forests out there, totally. And if we lose them, that's going to change totally. So we need to get boots on the ground. We need the funding, the support, the political assistance from all around the world, because you know, if we lose the most iconic animals in the world, it's a fairly sad state for us as humans.
So, getting back, my subject again is important. What do you see you're going to need some politics, whether you want to deal with it or not, that's just the bottom line. You're going to have to get either some activists, some lobbyists, and some lawyers to go to D.C. Or the UN. Let's just call it the UN, because it needs to be something where everybody in the world says, okay, we need to come together and fight this thing. And then the next thing would be, to me, is I'd like to know how these other armies are getting so supplied. For the rain people who want to fight to have less than them. No. You know, it's a huge trade. So either you, and it's just my theory, you're selling the animals, you're buying the weapons to keep your trade going.
Totally.
But someone isn't looking out when all of this stuff runs out. So when it runs out, I guess you're going to start fighting each other for whatever scraps that's left.
Someone's making money behind it, and we never know who that is. Trade in the black market, you never know who's sitting at the top.
At the top. Okay. So let me ask you this. With all of the poaching that's going on, with all the animals, and of course the people who are doing this, has anyone been tried or anyone went to court over all of this?
So in some countries now, prosecution is increasing. So it's an understanding in some of the governments that are more transparent, that people are being taken to court. So in Niger, in West Africa, the population was down to 49 individuals. So the government stood up and basically put in some good policies, and now the population has grown to 500 individuals, which is still not much, but it's huge compared to 20 years ago. And people who are caught, they get prosecuted, and they normally do 10 to 15 years in jail.
And let me ask you this. So far we're talking about poaching. What story can you tell me about the dangerous situation that you might have been in? What was the most one where you said, woo, I may have to rethink this entire thing out? Or has there ever been something where you say, whoa, you know what, time to get on the plane
and out.
I got to think about this today. You know what I mean? In my life and what I'm doing, there has been times where you go, wow, this mission is from the heart, but boy,
my wife,
it makes you wonder, you know what I mean?
I agree. My wife sometimes says that there is no pill for stupidity, and Julian, sometimes you cross it. And so I was in Ethiopia last year. We were up in a helicopter looking for giraffe to put GPS satellite collars to figure out where they're going. So we were quite close to the South Sudanese borders, and as we came low over these trees, we saw a whole bunch of people and cattle. So we went down low and we saw people lift some AK-47s and go duck, 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 duck. And so bullets flying around us.
And they don't even know you, just shoot.
No, they just want us out of that area. So it turned out that they were cattle rustlers. Luckily, I mean, we were hitting the helicopter, bullets flew through us and around us, and no one was hurt. So what we did is quickly got out of there and just said, okay, I think job done, guys. I think let's move on out of here. This is, we can only do so much to save giraffe.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, now you carrying somebody with you, a park ranger that has one, but that's only one gun with a bunch of you.
Actually, in that helicopter, we had no one. We had a veterinarian who had a dart gun. But I don't think I really want to get close to a dart gun to shoot someone. So no. Sometimes we've got some teams with us, but mostly we're carrying nothing. We've got no people supporting us.
So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Why can't your crew be licensed to protect themselves?
We probably could, but in all honesty, if I've got myself into this situation, that's probably the last thing I want to do. You don't want me shooting a gun. I'd probably shoot myself, actually. But I think where there is dangerous situations, we bring skilled people along with us.
Okay.
But it's cost, it's money, it's time to bring in people. So, you know, we're just little guys on the ground trying to make a difference. We don't want to get into a war. Let those other guys fight it out, and hopefully we don't get caught up in the middle. Not too often.
Well, I understand that. So tell me something. You got caught, I'm sure, in watching bullets fly at you like you just stated. What about, have you ever been in the predicament where you have the giraffe and somebody wants it?
Luckily not yet.
Luckily not. Not yet. Okay.
But what we've done is we've been doing work on giraffe, and literally a couple of days later, there's been insurgents come in and kill those giraffe.
Okay. All right. Now let me get on the collar. I'm glad. You know, when I first saw the video of that huge collar, I was concerned about safety measures.
Yeah.
And just being concerned it could get caught on something.
Yeah.
Now you have a smaller one, which I guess you can put that right on his
Ossicone.
ossicone.
Yeah.
That's what you call it. Okay.
Yeah.
And the one with 5, y'all just pick one. Correct?
Yeah, we just picked the big one in the middle.
So that's now the tracking.
Yeah.
Explain to my viewers why the tracking is important, and then if there is poachers, is the tracking system where you can pull up a visual of the giraffe, or is it just radar?
It basically sends a signal like your satellite phone, where are you, and it picks a point. So what we can do is we track them to see where they're moving, and sometimes we use that to be proactive, so that we can get people on motorbikes or cars to follow the giraffe and make sure there's no other people around. But when something happens to that giraffe, it sends a signal. We call it a death signal.
So you don't have, I guess you don't have the funding to be able to visually see it from GPS or something.
No, and the problem is it's really expensive and it doesn't last long because you need a massive battery life and to be able to send back video constantly.
No. What I'm saying is your GPS. Like right now, we're sitting here.
Yeah.
If they decided to follow your phone or my phone, they can. I don't know if you're familiar, but you have Google. You have your maps, and I'm just wondering, is it possible with your GPS, just like you can bring up the picture now, the bird's eye view?
What we can
You
picture,
follow what I'm saying?
if I go into it, I can see exactly where it is, but I can't see...
You can't see the bird's eye view.
No.
And the bird's eye view is from the satellite, just like we're sitting here. If somebody wanted to see where me and you were sitting right now, they can go to bird's eye view and click on it, and it'll show the bird's eye view.
Oh, I haven't seen that before. That's super cool.
Okay. So let's say you picked a house, somebody's house.
Yeah.
You actually could view their house.
Oh, wow.
From bird's eye view. You can view the streets from bird's eye view.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, and maybe we need to keep you up to date. I'm just wondering whether or not that's something, once y'all take the signal, pinpoint it, and then use Google to zero right in on that area and see what's there.
It depends, I suppose, if Google has updated or got access through satellites to those points. But it's something I've never heard of and sounds really cool.
Okay, so what it is you have your regular map now.
Yeah.
And then if you click on bird's eye view with your computer, you bring it straight to the street. You know what I mean? And it may be a couple of seconds behind. Some maps are a day behind, but you can actually look right there and see. And then they have something that I seen the other day, and I'm trying to find it, where you actually can zero right in as if you're on the street. It's crazy. But that may be something that you may want to look into using Google later on after you pinpoint it. And I don't know how it's going to work, but I guess y'all can do longitude and latitude. Click it in there and go straight there.
For sure.
And that may be something that you may want to look into. And I'm sure if they're doing it here, that satellite got to be covering other areas.
Yeah, no, that's something I'll have a look at.
It's called bird's eye view.
Okay.
And then that being said, let me ask you this. Do you believe if it come time, would you turn the giraffes that are over here, some of them will go back to the wild? Or why couldn't they go back to the wild?
So giraffe in USA...
I say the USA or around the country.
Yeah. So in USA, for example, we have two major types of giraffe. The Rothschilds reticulated, which are two different ones, but they've actually been mixed, hybridized in the zoos in the wild. And they reckon about 90% are already mixed up. And the other one is the Maasai giraffe. At the moment, I think it's very expensive and not necessary to take them back. Especially because the genetics, their pureness, we're really a bit unsure.
Okay, what could happen?
What could happen, and we're bringing back something that's mixed up, and that doesn't naturally happen in the wild. But in saying that, if all the animals were knocked off in Africa and the threat was removed, that's really most important, then we could think about moving them back, but only if and when, and I think that's by far the 120th choice down the line.
Now let me ask you this, we already went through why they cut the tails off for fly squatters, which you can buy some plastic or some rubber to do that. Now the thing I heard, HIV, is there any science that's saying that certain animals could carry the cure?
No.
No.
So if they basically kill them for bone marrow. So it's just basically, you know, sort of juju. It's a magic that local Africans in some areas believe that this is going to be a cure for HIV.
And bone marrow, that's for sale over there?
As a result of, killing the giraffe, getting the bone marrow, and then selling it locally within their area and across borders.
Okay, so let me ask you this right now, since we have some time. Bone marrow can be sold. Is that one of the big trades? So let's just level it down. What is the biggest trade over there used? Is it for fly swatters when it comes to the giraffes, or is it bone marrow, or is it just the concept of somebody believing that it's HIV cure?
It's meat.
It's meat.
Food. So that's, all of these other things are having impact in certain areas.
So that's just for regular people, the meat.
The meat's, just selling it on the market.
Okay, and then comes the poaching.
Then
so
after poaching, but the poaching is killing animals for the meat as well. So they're illegally killing them, and they're bringing them into local food markets on the side of the streets, cooking up a barbecue
giraffe,
and eating it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of meat on an animal, and you know they're very friendly, easygoing animals. They don't normally run away. They're quite curious. So if you've got a bullet, you can bring down a 1-ton animal. So
we would say food as the number one.
Yep.
Okay. And then their tails.
Tails and bone marrow, they've both been impacting in different areas in different ways.
And that's the giraffe. That's all they're actually killing them for, is those 3 items.
Well, you know...
Or for sport.
Sport, so that's legal hunting in some areas in southern Africa. You can legally hunt an animal like you can hunt a white-tailed deer and things like that. It's permitted by government. Not my cup of tea, but each to their own. But illegal hunting, there's also been over the years for the use of their coats as helps for bowls for local people to carry water, things like that, or beds or shoes. So there's been a host of things over the years, but not anything as bad, of course, as ivory or as rhino horn.
Okay, and now that it seems like how long you been doing this, Max?
About 20 years. Most of it's been sort of in my spare time, but the last couple of years we've been full-time in giraffe conservation.
So a lot of the times that you have been over there, you said 20 years?
Yeah, I've been living over there on,
Wow. So you've been over here for what?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
What do you see different? Because, I'll be honest with you, when we was following you, I asked my sweetie, how does he get used to driving on this side of the car? You know what I mean?
Well, you guys are bad drivers anyway.
And then the red lights, because I don't think there's too many out there.
And we're on the other side of the road, as you say, and
right.
It's right on red. That doesn't make sense to me. It's a red light. You just should stop and wait for it to go green. But no.
So have you had any problems adapting to anything over here?
Well, mostly adapting to bad American drivers. Let's be honest. I think I drive a lot and all over the world at times, which is nice, and so I enjoy it. I think it's a good challenge to get out there, and you drive automatics, no sticks. So we all drive sticks, so that's the hardest thing to do when you drive.
So when you turning out of here,
yeah.
wherever you going, you done got used to it now since you've been over here.
I have to keep saying right it to myself. As we're turning, I go right, stay on the right.
Now let's get into this. Your family.
Yep.
That's a lot of sacrifice in all what you're doing. Why don't you explain to the viewers the sacrifice that you are making? Because I'm sure you could have came over here and got a regular job, live in your home, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever,
yep.
and you're done. The sacrifices that you and your family is making to get this going. Explain some of that.
Well, it's been something that we've discussed for 20 years. So my wife and I run the Giraffeconservation Foundation, and we realised that we need to make a difference, and that's why we decided let's throw personal finances in, but also, let's sort of take a risk because someone needs to do something for giraffe. We have 2 young kids, which is great, and we send them to school in Namibia. It's a nice school, but they probably spend too much time out of school chasing giraffe around Africa with us, which is brilliant. But life is about sacrifices, in all honesty. And if you think you're going to make a difference and you want to make a difference, sometimes you have to just bite the bullet and hopefully work out what's going to be best. And for us at the moment, trying to save giraffe is what we hope, and hopefully for our kids and our kids' future, there'll still be giraffe around.
That would have been one of my questions, how your kids feel about the chasing the giraffe. taking them down and getting all involved into all of that?
Oh, they love it. You know, my young daughter, who's 8 years old, Molly, you know, she says that when she grows up, she just wants to be like her dad. So, which is really nice. I'd prefer that she's probably an accountant and make some good money and live happily ever after. But no, it's nice. I mean, her and her brother Luca, they're best of mates, and I just hope that, you know, you're trying to provide the best education and the best training and the best sort of all-rounded sort of worldly views for them, that when they grow up that they can see the views of the world through their eyes, and that's about working with people and saving animals is key to that.
Now, a lot of times we only see very few, let's say this, when something goes on around the world, they paint one picture and then later on we find another. Is there cities over in Africa like here
Yeah,
that
so
are built up?
I live in Windhoek, which is the capital of Namibia in southwest Africa, and we always say Namibia is Africa for beginners. We actually have better roads than you do. We have no potholes, no nothing like that. I was driving the other day somewhere and everywhere there's a pothole here and there. But no, some of our roads are absolutely amazing. Some of the cities are built up, but as you get more and more into sort of Central and West Africa, it gets far more remote and far more sort of Africa-like, what people think. But you get the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like any cities in the world.
So it's not, and hopefully we can get some pictures from you in those cities, it's not where some things are being portrayed. Let's face it, people portray different things in different areas, and that's one reason I got into the magazine, so we can start trying to show the total truth on how living is here and there. Good, the bad, and the ugly. So you're saying, like, you've been around the United States. The city that you live in, what city does it compare to here?
So I think it's...
Is it New York? Or is
No.
Is it Florida? What city would you say?
Luckily it's not New York, I think that's good. It's a much smaller city, so it's about 300,000 people in the capital of Namibia. So it's more like...
Compared to Orlando?
Yeah, small, but not as widespread at all. It's more like let's say a Naples.
Okay.
Yeah, so much smaller like that. Maybe not the wealth of Naples, but it's much smaller like that. If you go to somewhere like Nairobi, it's, you know, we're talking about well over 1 million people in Nairobi, but a lot of slum areas.
And what does it compare to over here? Again.
Well,
What city? If somebody wanted to view it...
it's the New York of Africa.
It's the New York, okay.
But the slum areas, you know, probably themselves have almost 1 million people living in them, in tin shacks, and so it is difficult to sort of compare with that. I don't know.
But the building-wise...
Some of the buildings in the middle, but there's not that many of them. You're talking about, you know, a couple of sky rises, and that's it.
Okay, so you would say categorize it like a small city here with tall buildings such as New York.
Yeah, but that's why we call it the New York, but it really isn't. It's not comparable at all, but the population size is big, and people come into cities in Africa looking for jobs, and that's what results in more crime, because people just can't afford to live. So that's a big impact.
And that would be another political thing, because there's a lot of wealth in there, I gather, and yet the people aren't getting paid for what they're worth, I would gather that.
There's a massive disparity between rich and poor. So in Windhoek, in Namibia, or Namibia as a country, they say it's got the largest Gini coefficient in the world. And the Gini coefficient is the disparity between rich and poor people.
Okay.
So it looks like a wealthy country and the like, but people are doing either very well or they're subsistence farmers.
So there's no middle class.
Hardly anything in between.
Okay. So let's get back on the giraffe. I also saw in your presentation they shot a dart.
Yeah.
From my language, they shot a dart and you pulled the DNA out.
Yeah.
And the skin apparently is very thick.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't like things happening to animals, so I've got to come at you. And y'all pulled it out. It looked like a pretty good piece.
It's a bit of a
Now,
chunk.
are they bleeding after this? No blood at all. So it doesn't really hurt them. And how long does it take to heal?
Well, it may hurt them a little bit. It's like a big mosquito bite, probably a really big mosquito bite. But it pulls out a little bit of tissue, just like out of your skin, but it doesn't go into the meat. It doesn't. So
it's just like the top.
It's just like the top piece. You know, when we scrape, like myself, I do every day, scrape my knuckles and whatnot. It's probably more like that. It closes up straight away. We've done a lot of monitoring after to make sure there's no problems, and we've never had a problem. And I've done hundreds and hundreds across Africa.
So after you get that DNA, that's helping you decide the strands, or what do you need the DNA literally for?
So our inside of that is like a huge mystery, and there's so much DNA inside little pieces of tissue. So we send it to our partners in Germany at Senckenberg Museum, and what they do is all these clever machines, and they basically figure out
I gather
what's
that's
what.
a cost too.
Well, what we've done is we do the work in the field and they do the work in the office. So we set up this partnership, but going around and collecting samples for the last 10 years across Africa, it costs a lot of time and money.
So let me ask you this. Speaking of partners, and I sort of chart with a lot of other things on, like I said, I want to get that information from you, the different foundations. Explain the partnering up, and then the different diversities that you do have, partnering up, dealing with people, building relationships with them. Explain all that in the importance.
It's critical. You know, you can't do giraffe conservation or any wildlife conservation as one entity. So we work with governments, we set up national strategies with governments and agreements.
Explain that, because here's the thing, you remember, people only know something. You're talking about strategy. What possibly, and I'm going to be dumbfounded, what possibly of a strategy could you have with a giraffe and set it up with a government? So you got to break it down so my people will understand.
No worries.
You know what I mean? So people who are viewing this throughout the United States, throughout the world, they know what you're saying. Because if you don't use layman's terms, sometimes it gets missed.
Straight over.
Well, it hits, but you know it could go straight over too. So explain that to me.
So
strategy.
Think about it like a marriage. So first you start dating. So we work with governments to figure out what do they need to be able to help save giraffe. Is it getting extra land for giraffe? Is it first understanding how many giraffe are there? What are the threats? Is it poaching one of the threats? And during this sort of dating process, we figure out that maybe we need to develop a strategy in a country which includes how to do all of these things, who is going to do it, what money is needed, and what partners need to come together. So once we develop this national strategy, that's when the marriage is formed.
And you're working with a bunch of small countries in Africa.
We work over 14 countries in Africa.
Right.
So
it's not like the U.S. just go to one government and then you're done.
No.
So you're working with a bunch of them.
It's extremely challenging. Sometimes it's us working directly, sometimes it's working through other partners, non-government organizations in particular who already are based in countries. And so as a result of that, we can work with them to be able to help save them.
Okay. And what other help could you use to help get this done as far as partnering up? You know, because normally when I say partnering up, I'm looking at massive companies coming on board to donate funds. So partnering up with you with the local governments, I gather you got to get dressed and go in there and write a proposal. Is that part of it?
Lots of that, and lots of turning up, going away, turning up, going away. It's a long-term investment. Nothing, it just doesn't happen overnight. So
have you thought about going to the UN and making a presentation? Really sitting down and ask, could you speak to the UN?
I think by the end of this year, giraffe will be listed as one of the threatened categories on what's called the IUCN, the World Conservation Union. So when you hear something is endangered or critically endangered, so we've done
be the door opener.
So that's going to be the door opener. We hope that that's going to be the process. So we've been building up to that. I mean, the bottom line is you need money for conservation. That's the reality. But connected to that, you need people with skills. You need equipment. All of these things come together to be able to make that difference. And non-government organisation, it's a strange beast. You're not selling anything like, you know, a phone or whatnot. I think you're selling something more important. You're selling, saving one of the most iconic animals that's ever roamed this earth.
Okay. So let me ask you this, in closing. How would they go about getting in touch with you, number one? And tell the public what they can do. Let's say you're speaking to the entire world, because our goal is to be worldwide. So if you're speaking to them, what exactly could you say? This is what we need. The regular guy.
Yep.
Not just the politicians, but the guy who want to reach out and don't know what to do.
So I think first thing, people can educate themselves. Get online to our website. So giraffeconservation.org. It's got lots of information on there. There's free posters, free booklets. Learn what we do. When you're on there, you can also do things like adopt a giraffe. Okay. So if you want to adopt a giraffe in Namibia, So you can provide a small amount of donation, which comes every year, and we'll provide feedback on what we're doing to save those giraffe in Africa. There's also donating online through PayPal and other mechanisms. But close to home, it's a real challenge. What can people do right here in Florida or Cheyenne or wherever? What they can do is, personally, they can do things around the house. Reuse, reduce, recycle. The most important things in the world are start local, then think global.
Okay, and by that point, let's get that clarity. When you talk about recycling, how does that connect to the giraffes?
It seems a bit...
Let's, because with me, I want to make sure people have a clear thing. Because somebody may ask, well, you know what? What is it going to do? Giraffe is in Africa. I'm over here. What do I need to recycle for? So explain the connection.
So it's a tall order. No. It's, basically, if you're looking at oil, makes plastics. So what's happening throughout Africa is oil production is increasing, and a lot of that is in national parks and protected areas where giraffe live. So their habitat where they live is being reduced because of the demand for oil. And that demand for oil is producing things like plastics, like car parts, which all need to be recycled. And the more recycling we can do, the less oil we need.
Okay, well that explains the connections. Now finish your statement, what you said earlier. I didn't mean to cut you
off. No.
What else can they do besides recycling? If they want to help, you already said they can come on and donate.
Yeah.
What can they do around, have you ever thought about a program with the school systems, with stuff like that?
So we have a large environmental education program. When I say large, it's relative, in Namibia, but we also do environmental education support in different countries in Africa. So some zoos, let's look at Blank Park Zoo in Des Moines, Iowa. So we partner up with them and they bring lots of school equipment when they've come over to visit us in Africa. And we've donated it to schools in Africa who are really under-resourced and underprivileged. So being able to share those spoils with African kids is amazing. And it's, most of these kids have never owned pens in their life. So they've been sharing them around. So to be able to do things like that, it's challenging because we need to get those equipment over. But where there's a will, there's a way. And we can help make that happen.
Okay. So books, educational things would be a great help. And then as far as a program over here, what I was talking about, where you would get a chance to come into the school system and educate, is that one of your 5-year to 10-year plans, or what would you?
So what we do already in some areas, we will go online, and the joys of the internet these days. Recently, my wife and I, with our kids, we were talking to 5,000 kids in Florida over the internet, asking questions, feeding back. So that's one way we can do it, to be able to share. I think also what would be a really interesting thing to do is for kids here to be able to link with kids in Africa and be able to do some projects that are very similar, share those experiences, and by doing that it's more like a pen pal system, and being able to then grow that partnership and hopefully support, and maybe what they can do is adopt a school in Africa. And those things would be really valuable, and that would help the future leaders of Africa to know that conservation pays, and if they conserve, then the animals around them can be saved.
Okay, so in closing, I'm going to leave a couple of minutes for you to say what you need to say, and I'll put the camera right on you. If there's anything you want to say to any of our listeners who not just want to get involved, but want, as you say, to get more information, if they wanted to reach you personally, let's say you get wound up with a donor that wants to reach you literally personally, how difficult? Because I've been to some websites and they have contact us, but then there's nothing there to contact. You know what I mean? And you don't have all the information. You want to do something, but there's an issue there. Or you want to have a private conversation on, look, I'm going to write a check. What do I need to do? You know what I mean? And then also your 10-year plan.
Okay.
Explain that, and then we'll be ready to. You can look right at that camera.
Look at that one. So, we'd love to get as much support as possible. We would love everyone to learn what they need to know about giraffe conservation. This is the basis, what we do to be able to conserve these animals and the future of the most iconic animal in the world. So go online, go to giraffeconservation.org, and what you can do is download any information, get the posters, learn what's happening giraffe in Africa. And then if you want to contact me directly. info@giraffeconservation.org. It's on the website. Myself, my wife, we will personally respond. There is no doubt about that. We're a small organisation, but we respond, and communication is key. That connected to knowledge. Knowledge is power. So what we hope is that by you learning more, you want to be engaged more. And by being engaged, we then are partnering together to save giraffe in Africa. As for 10 years, what do we see from now moving forward?
Yeah, what do you see from now?
I'd love to say a world where it's rosy, where it's full of giraffe. But I think there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some hiccups. But what I see is that we've got projects across the whole of Africa, programs, we've got increased partnerships and support where future of giraffe is getting more and more sustainable.
Would you be looking to purchase land over there, or how difficult it is to get land over there where you can start really doing something?
So maybe purchasing land is difficult as a foreigner, but we would be working closely with governments and with non-profit organisations in countries to help develop corridors between areas to save giraffe and save other wildlife. So it could be anything, from buying land all the way through to political lobbying and everything in between.
So even though you're out there to save animals, it still would be hard for GCF to purchase land because you actually not a citizen there. Is that what you're saying?
I'm a strange Australian who's just running around in Africa.
For 20 years, and yet you still can't purchase land.
Yeah.
But over here, you can be a foreigner and don't have a problem buying land.
Just expensive.
Okay.
But that's unfortunately, so that's what you need to do is partner up. So we work with, say, organisations like African Parks Network who help governments to manage land in different parts of Africa. A lot like the Nature Conservancy in America. So what we do is we bring our giraffe skills and work with them to help better manage the giraffe in the areas that they manage.
Oh, getting back on one before I let him go, there is one thing. I see that giraffes have long tongues and they're getting up in trees. Now, I've heard that a lot of the leaves that they eat sometimes have points on them.
Spikes, yeah. Those acacia thorns.
If I put that on my face, I'm going to hurt. How do they do that with the tongue that they have? Is there a separation in there? Is this a larva that breaks everything down? What exactly, because, I look at some of the, I look at some of the leaves and go, ooh, there's no way I would take my tongue and lick that leaf and not get hurt.
No. That tongue can get in, it can manipulate around it, but it's got like an antiseptic. So each time they'll get pricked, it'll sort of basically cleanse itself. But yeah, I think it's got to hurt like hell. Let's be honest.
A whole tree with them on there, and I've seen some of the leaves and I'm going, man, it's got to, really.
Yeah, I know. But that tongue goes literally in around and around it to be able to pluck them free.
And even with the bugs.
Even with the bugs. And lots of ants then come on and they bite the animal and everything like that. But giraffe, they're tough. It's not for sissies, not for you and me to go out and eat there.
Right. So that's one of the questions. But listen, I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we look forward to getting more information from you as we move forward. And every now and then send us a video.
Sounds good.
Every now and then send us a video and so forth so that we can get more information and then follow you up to dates. So we don't want just to be one segment. We want you to send a couple of other things on what you're doing, videos, and always feel that we're not the one-hit kind of people where we do a story on you, don't hear from you for another year. If you got more information in a week or 2 or 3 weeks and you want to send us a video or pictures, we want to build Earth Beauty section up where we're discovering more things. And whatever other contacts that you have in the other foundations, we want to make sure that we carry this brand and let people know the importance of it. And if someone's else coming, try to have them contact us, and we'd be more than happy to try to get a meeting with them and carry it. So you're going back when, next week? Or
going back next week. Go see the family. Looking forward to it.
Okay. And you got some. I gather you got some schedules.
I've got 4 days.
Okay.
At home, and then I go out into the desert for 10 days, and then I come home for 4 days, and then I go out for another week. So life's busy, but
Well, we
Could be
definitely
worse.
want to follow you. So if you got pictures or small
I'll
videos,
send
you can
stuff
do
through.
this. Send it through. If not, we'll make arrangements to get it from you, where we can sit and really see what it is. Follow you on your mission. That's what I'm after. So anyway, we thank the leader of GCF for coming and meeting with Japec Community Life Magazine. We look forward to more. Thank you.